In this video, you will learn to find the circumference of a circle and also how to find the diameter or radius of a circle if given the circumference. Now, before we get into the new material, let's do a quick review of some basic circle definitions. Now, first off, a circle, remember, is the set of points that are the same distance from a fixed point called a center. All right, so each point on this circle is the same distance to the center right there. So that distance is the same as this distance, as it is to this distance, etc. All right, so this would be called circle O. We named it after the center point right here. And within the circle, we see different line segments. So we have what's called a chord, which is a line segment with both endpoints on the circle. So for example, segment CD is a chord and AB is a chord because both of those segments have the endpoints right there on the circle. Point A and point B are right on the circle. Point C and point D both are right on the circle. So both of those would be chords. And then we have what's called the diameter, which is a type of chord that goes through the center. So for example, segment AB right here goes through the center and it's got the endpoints on the circle. So the diameter would be this segment AB. And then radius is half of that. It's halfway across the circle. It's a segment going from the center to a point on the circle. So for example, from A to O, right here, this segment would be a radius. And then O to B, from here to here, would also be another radius. So in this picture, we have two different radii, which that's plural for radius, radii, two i's. And that's going to be half of the diameter. So make sure you know those terms. And then we also have a term called circumference. Now, circumference is the entire topic of discussion for this lesson. And what it is it's the entire distance around the circle. So if you had to measure with a tape measure of some sort the distance around the circle, that would be your circumference. So it's basically the same thing as perimeter. Perimeter is the distance around a shape. Circumference specifically is the distance around a circle. So it's the same idea as perimeter. Now, to find or to calculate that circumference, we first must understand the definition of a word called pi. Now, pi is the Greek letter, and we use this to represent the ratio that compares the circumference to the diameter of a circle. So mathematicians found that if you measure the distance around a circle and then divide it by the distance across the circle, it doesn't matter the size of the circle, that ratio will always equal the same number. So pi is that number that is equal to. So pi is the ratio of circumference divided by diameter. And that number is always the same, like we said, for any circle. So it's the same for any size of circle. And this number is an irrational number. It keeps going on forever and ever and ever. So this ratio is 3.14, 159, 26535, 8979, 3238, etc. It keeps going on forever and ever. So it's an irrational number. And for calculating purposes, if you are doing this by hand, you can use or round to 3.14. On many calculators, you'll have a pi button. You just type in the pi button to calculate if you have it. But if not, if you do it by hand, you can round to 3.14. All right, so pi we said is equal to the circumference divided by diameter. And if we rearrange this, we can solve this for circumference. So if we multiply both sides of this equation by d, by the diameter, that will get the diameter to cancel on the right side. And that gives us circumference equals pi times diameter. So what this is it's a formula that can be used to calculate the circumference, where if we know the diameter, just multiply by pi, and that gives you the circumference. So how do we do this? So here's our first example of calculating the circumference. In this example, you're told that the segment AB is 3 meters, and we're trying to find the circumference. Now again, we can use our circumference formula. Circumference equals pi times diameter. Now diameter is all the way across the circle, so the distance from A to B, which is given to us directly to be 3 meters. So the distance all the way across is 3 meters. So we plug in that 3, that's your diameter, plug it in for D into the formula. So what we have is pi times 3. And we can write this instead as 3 times pi, same thing. So we can leave it like this many times, but if you're calculating like for everyday life, you're going to want an actual number answer. So we can multiply 3 times pi. So 3 times pi would be 3 times 3.14. And if you do that correctly, you're going to get 9.52 meters. So the distance around this entire circle was calculated to be 9.52 meters. And the coloring is kind of weird. It didn't save in the PowerPoint, but the whole number is supposed to be red. But either way, you get the idea. The circumference is 9.52 meters. Let's try another example. Here we have AO is 5 meters, and we're trying to calculate the circumference. So the circumference formula is C equals pi times diameter, and we just need to get the diameter. So here AO is 5 meters. That's from here to the center. That's 5 meters. But the diameter, remember, is the distance all the way across the circle. So the distance all the way across, if this is 5 meters from A to O, from O to B would also be 5 meters. So the diameter is all the way across, which would be 10 meters. So that's the number you plug in for diameter into the formula. So now we have pi times 10, and pi times 10 can be rearranged as 10 times pi, or 10 pi. And you can type that into a calculator. We have 10 times 3.14, and we just move the decimal point over one place to get 31.4 meters. So when you're using this formula, just be careful. You're plugging in the correct number in for diameter. If you are given the radius, make sure you multiply by 2 to get the diameter. Now, to finish off, what if we were given the circumference and we were told to find the diameter and the radius? So for this one, we again can use our circumference formula. Circumference equals pi times diameter. And in this case, circumference is given to us. So in place of the C, we can put in 35. So what we have is 35 equals, and pi is 3.14, and multiply that by the diameter. So we have 35 equals 3.14 times diameter. And we see that typed up right here. And then to solve for diameter, we use our knowledge of equation solving. We have a number times diameter. So to get rid of the number in front, we have to do the inverse of multiplying, which is dividing. So we divide both sides by 3.14. So we have diameter equals 35 divided by 3.14, and you type that into your calculator, and you get approximately 11.15 centimeters. Now again, if you have a pi button on your calculator, you could just do 35 and then divide by, and then push the pi button for a more exact answer. But if you don't have that button, you can just type in 3.14, and that would give you a good enough answer for this. So here, the diameter is 11.15 centimeters. Now the radius, we're also trying to find. The radius is half of this number. So we divide this number by 2 to find the radius. That's the distance halfway across. And if we divide by 2 on our calculator, we now get 5.575 as our radius. So in this lesson, we have learned what pi is. We learned how to use that to find the circumference, and we also use the circumference to find either the diameter or the radius. And that concludes our lesson for today. We will see you next time.